want to take a minute tonight to talk about something that a lot of us as gun owners have said before. It's a statement that kind of implies that sometimes carrying a gun can get you killed. That statement is, if you're not going to use it, don't carry it. If you're not willing to pull the trigger, don't carry a gun, because carrying a gun that you're not willing to use can get you killed. This is something that all of us as gun owners have probably heard before. It's something maybe we've even said ourselves. I know I've said it once or twice myself. I've even caught myself saying it. But tonight I want to take a look at it mathematically and see if there's any truth to that. Is it actually true that carrying a gun while not being willing to fire it can actually get you killed? Is it a significant risk factor? Well, first off, let's look at how likely you are to use your gun. Every year in this country, there's between, depending on which study you look at, 700,000 and over 2 million self-defense uses of firearms every year. That's a lot of defenses. That's way more often than a gun is actually used on someone by a bad guy. So people use guns to defend themselves more often than bad guys use them to attack people. But out of those many uses of a gun for self-defense, only about 5% to 8% actually involve firing the gun. Between 92% and 95% of all self-defenses with a firearm don't involve firing the gun at all. They don't even involve pulling the trigger. Usually a bad guy sees a gun and he's done. He doesn't want to be involved in this anymore. He's out of there. So when you look at the numbers like that and you look at, well, 92 to 95% of the time, even if you're not willing to shoot it, it's still going to save you from an attack. Well, it's kind of hard to say then that carrying a gun, even if you're not going to use it, is a bad idea, because the vast majority of the time you're attacked, it's still going to save you. But let's talk about those 5% to 8% of the times where the bad guy is determined enough that seeing a gun isn't going to stop you. Let's talk about those times. Let's see if that instance would maybe justify our belief that carrying a gun and not using it might get you killed. Because let's face it, if a bad guy is willing to keep coming at you even though you have a gun, he's probably predetermined to hurt you. If you're not willing to fire the gun at that point in time, yes, there's a very good likelihood that if they take it from you, they're willing to use it. So what we have to look at now is those people that are willing to come at you, willing to take your gun, and willing to use it on you, would you be safer if you didn't have that gun and maybe had a less than lethal option instead of a gun? Because people that won't use lethal force are more likely to use less than lethal force. They probably wouldn't have the same issues about using less than lethal force like mace or a taser. And then that 5 to 8% of the time where the bad guy is going to keep coming at you even if you have a gun, I would say yes, a mace and a taser probably would work better. It would give you a chance to maybe debilitate your foe, blind your foe, do whatever you had to do to get away. You'd be able to escape them and leave. That's your best goal, is to get away from them. So that might put them out of the picture long enough for you to get away. But since that 5 to 8% of the time doesn't equal that, that 95 or 92 at the worst percent of the time that the gun would save you even if you didn't fire it, since that does not cancel that out, you would have to look at another factor. That other factor is, would that less than lethal option also save you during those other 92 to 95% of the time? Would it work then as well as a gun does? And I don't think it would. I do not think a less than lethal option would stop people as quickly as a sight of a gun. If people who see you have mace or see you have a taser might still take a chance. They might come at you. They might hope that you don't know how to use it effectively, or that maybe it doesn't affect them well enough that they can still get their hands on you and take you out. So I don't think less than lethal would work in the vast majority of the times as well as a gun does. So when you take all that into account, when you take into account that the gun is going to save you, like I said, 92 to 95% of the time, even if you don't use it, less than lethal options probably aren't going to save you as often, I don't think we can actually say that carrying a gun that you won't use is more dangerous than not carrying a gun. I still think you'd be far safer carrying a gun even if you aren't willing to fire it. Because like I said, 92 to 95% of the time, it's going to still protect you. So in the end, my position is going to be, it's always safer to carry the gun. And if you're not willing to fire it, I don't know, maybe load it with some dummy rounds or something. That way, if the bad guy does take it from you, the worst they can do is beat you with it. All you've given them at that point is a really expensive club. But I really wouldn't even suggest doing that, because of all the people that say, I could never pull the trigger, I could never pull the trigger, when your life is on the line, or worse yet, when the life of your family is on the line, I think you might find out that it's completely a different story. At that time, I think you might find that you would definitely pull the trigger without even thinking. You would deal with the consequences later, but your first instinct is going to be to protect yourself and your family. So in the end, my conclusion would be, you're always going to be safer with a gun, even if you won't shoot it, because you never know. When the chips are down, you might shoot it. So carry a loaded gun. It will protect you. And for those people that aren't willing to use it, also have something else. Have a less than lethal backup that you can use if you're pushed to the wall and you had to fire the gun and you're not willing. You've got something else to stand between you and that bad guy. Something that can incapacitate them, something to give you a chance to get away. Because there's nothing that says you can't have both, a lethal option and a less than lethal option. So in the end, I think it's something we need to stop saying because I don't think it's true. I don't think carrying a gun that you're not willing to pull the trigger on is going to get you killed, or it's more dangerous than not carrying a gun. Like I've said many times already in this video, it's still safer to carry the gun. Just have other options if you're not sure you can use it.